Hi everyone, Vincenzo here. In this video we're going to work on those annoying chords that can be a real pain in the neck when you're getting started on the ukulele. You probably guessed already which chords I'm talking about. They are G, D and E. Raise your hand if you wanted to learn a song, but because you saw one of those chords you decided to learn another one. I did. Let's not do this anymore. Let's find the best way to tackle these chords. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate your help. If you want a one-to-one lesson to work on chords or anything else, remember I offer a free introductory online lesson. Check the link in the description or simply reach out to me. Having said that, let's get started. You're doing well with the ukulele, but every time you have to play a trickier chord, it's not happening. Let me give you some tips that will work for every chord, and even more so for those annoying chords that we want to tackle today. Your fingers should be like hammers, like this. Also remember, you press the strings with your fingertips. If your fingers are flat on the fretboard, it will be impossible, for example, to play G. And also remember that is bad technique. Train your fingers to memorize chord shapes. When learning chords, muscle memory is key. Get your fingers in the position, lift them up and repeat. Start slowly and gradually get faster. But don't cheat, remember to lift up your fingers completely, like that. Play one string at a time to understand where the problem is. Once you understand that, it is much easier to fix it. You don't necessarily have to play all the strings all the time. This doesn't mean just to skip random notes, but some chords can be rearranged on the instrument in a more effective way. I will show you some examples later. Look for alternative shapes. All chords have many shapes. You might find a less common shape being more suitable for you. Finally, practice and don't lose motivation. You might say, thank you, but I knew this. Well, this is super important. One day, things will come together and you will be able to do it. But it won't be because of magic. It will be because of your hard work. Now, let's work on G, D and E, the most dreaded chords. G major is probably the first difficult chord you encountered in your ukulele journey. After all, it is pretty much present in every beginner song, for reasons that are probably better to explain in another video. Going back to this, it is fundamental that your fingers are not flat on the fretboard. And remember, you have to press the strings with your fingertips, like this. A common mistake is blocking the first string of the ukulele, because your ring finger is not like a hammer, so you get this. Also, don't forget to use the correct fingering. Index, ring finger, middle finger. I've seen some players doing this, and that's not really ideal. Some players might find it hard to use 3 fingers at the same time on the fretboard. If you are one of them, I have an alternative shape for you. The index will bar the first 3 strings of the ukulele on the 2nd fret. And the middle finger will press the 2nd string on the 3rd fret. This might not be that easy, especially if you're getting started, and you might prefer to just work on the first shape that I showed you before. However, I know that for some players, this shape works actually better. D major is another tricky one. We have to use 3 fingers on the fretboard at the same time again, and this time they are all on the 2nd fret. The fretboard of the ukulele might be a little bit too small for the index, the middle finger and the ring finger to fit all together. One thing that you can do is to use the middle finger, ring finger and pinky. That way it becomes easier, and it will also be useful for when we will be learning other chords. Remember that in D major the first string is open, like this. This could be another problem. In fact, if your fingers are a little bit flat, you risk missing this string. However, guess what? It doesn't really matter. This string plays an A, which is the 5th of the chord, and the 5th is not the most important note of a chord. Trust me on this. An alternative way of playing D is this. All you have to do is bar the last 3 strings of the ukulele with your index or with your middle finger. This is my personal favorite. I've also seen players doing this. They bar the last 2 strings of the ukulele with their index, and they press the second string on the second fret with their middle finger. I'm not a big fan of this position, but you might find it useful. Now, E. This is probably the hardest of the 3. We need to use 4 fingers for that. But the first thing to point out is that this is the same shape of D. We need to add the index because the shape has now moved 2 frets down, so we cannot use the open string anymore. Like we said before, we don't necessarily need to play the first string, so we can actually get rid of the index. Just make sure not to play the first string, otherwise we get this. You can decide whether to use index, middle finger and ring finger, or middle finger, ring finger and pinky. You could bar it the same as we did for D, but in general for E it is better to use the ring finger, like this. Let me show you an alternative shape for E, this one. Index on the last string on fret number 1, pinky on the third string on fret number 4, and the middle finger will play the second fret of the first string. This is not the easiest position ever, but I know that for some beginners it is okay. What shape you decide to play will also depend on which ukulele you are playing. For example, on a soprano ukulele, you might find it harder to play the E with this shape, and you might find it easier to simply bar the chord. Now that you know these tips, I'm sure your chords will sound better. Let me know how you're getting on in the comments. Remember, when learning a new song, always practice chord changes on their own, and always use a metronome. That's all for now. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. For a free lesson with me, check the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Ciao!